Shavua Tov and Shalom and Boker Tov, Yoav, and hello, Kirk. I don't think I'm actually going to open this stream up because, frankly, I had actually prepared to go to bed. I am extremely tired. But I had scheduled this stream, and thank you for reminding me, Kirk. And so I thought it was appropriate to just explain. So I am wearing a hat that Trey very graciously got me for my birthday as kind of a joke. And I am wearing a shirt that Richard, some of you may remember Richard, bought me last year for my birthday. And I am here on this channel in large part because of a man who I never met, who I did not know about during his lifetime, but whose death I grieve bitterly. The Luvavitch Rabbi, the seventh Luvavitch Rabbi, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. This is one of the definitive, although I hate to say it, I think it might be too Jewish of a biography of. I haven't read the Telushkin biography yet. I haven't read Adin Steinsaltz's biography either. This is by Chaim Miller. It's called Turning Judaism Outward. And a friend of mine bought it for me. And I appreciate it. And I mean, actually, the Sue Fishkoff book, The Rabbi's Army, which I did read, I highly recommend. There was another one about there have been several books about Chabad, which, I mean, frankly, I highly recommend learning more about Chabad, learning more about the life of the Rabbi, which includes learning more about what has happened since the passing of the Rabbi. I used to wear the picture of the Yenuka is up. There used to be a picture of the Rabbi, which I have had for 25 years now. I bought it in 1999 in the Old City. So there is a Jewish form of art. I'm sorry, it's late and I can't think of it right now, but the name of it escapes me, but it's making pictures, especially of people, by using calligraphy and micrography, I think it's called, maybe. And so it is a picture of the Rebbe that was made by somebody writing what one of his speeches. And I had that picture up in my room when I was in yeshiva in Jerusalem, and I have had that picture ever since. And I used to have it behind me, and I took it down partially now instead I have a there. I have a Chabad style menorah because the Rabbi insisted on the shape as drawn by Maimonides in his by his own hand. Anyway, over the Ark of Titus, but that's a whole other thing. But, and I'm sorry, I really am tired right now. But the Rabbi was an incredible inspiration. He has been an incredible inspiration in my life. He continues to be an incredible inspiration in my life. And I am greatly, greatly pained by the people who desecrate his memory by the various antics and crazy things that they do, in a very similar way as I am greatly heartened by how most followers of the Rebbe, certainly the ones who pay attention to the Rebbe's teachings the most, the ones who actually are, especially those who are out on shlichut, America's shlichut, the ones who have a genuine allegiance to the manner in which the Rebbe set up the community and how Chabad was to continue after he passed away. So I am going to read to you from a post I made a while back, January 8th, 2024. I have to say I was worried that the failure of Chabad to officially talk about the events of the 770 tunnel would end up being worse than they became. And as I mentioned to Yehuda Israel recently, my response got to the attention of a rabbi who, frankly, I thought should have been the one to write this type of stuff, to disseminate this type of stuff, and instead it was left up to me. Well, it wasn't left up to me, but I felt, since people were asking me what was going on at 770, including our good friends from the CRC, I decided to write a long thing explaining it, and I think it's appropriate on Gimmel Tammuz, especially when we are mourning the Rabbi's passing, for us, for me to read it again. So this was in reaction to a video showing what was going on, which was getting many views. It's still a thing, but almost 4 million views already, and I'm guessing it is only going to get more exposure from here. People are trying to understand what is happening here. The only answers they are getting are stupid conspiracy theories and jokes. So here goes. TLDR, that's how the kids say too long didn't read. Hasidic teenagers can be just as stupid and rebellious as any other teenage boys. That's a very, very low resolution picture of what was going on. Hopefully this is a more a better picture, although obviously there are things which are going on with regard to 770 which are so far from being connected to anything ideological. I mean, you can read this book and the issues regarding the Rebbe's library, and there's a whole host of other things in the background which are tectonically related, but this is, I think, the best of the visible, and I hope, I believe it gives us a picture. To understand what is going on here, you have to know what this place is. It is 770 Eastern Parkway, the world headquarters of the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic dynasty, or Chabad Lubavitch. There's a Hasidic dynasty. People say it both ways, but Lubavitch is how most people say it. Chabad is one of the oldest and most well-known Hasidic dynasties. I should have said dynasties. Sorry, typo. Can't fix it. Although the actual number of Chabad Hasidim is not as large as other Hasidic groups. Chabad is well known because the 7th Grand Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, who died 31 years ago tonight, known affectionately as the Rabbi. The Rabbi was the leader of Chabad for 40 years, from 1951 until his death in 1994. He was a remarkable man who helped Orthodox Judaism establish itself in the United States in the wake of the Holocaust. Have you heard of the minor apocryphal Jewish holiday of Hanukkah? It is quite likely the holiday you have heard most about, despite the fact that it is actually lots of... I also wrote this when I was very tired and wanted to be in bed, but felt it necessary to keep going. Actually quite minor in the grander scheme of Jewish life. The reason for that includes one of the Rebbe's famous campaigns to encourage not only Jews to be more aware of God in the world, but also Gentiles. The Rebbe was a lamplighter in both a literal and figurative way. He inspired large numbers of people to take his message of a little light pushes off much darkness, literally to the corners of the world. There are many biographies of the Rebbe and histories of his impact on the Jewish world. I highly recommend picking one up. The Rebbe's Army by Sue Fishkoff is one of the more accessible and well-written explanations. It is hard to explain the life of the Rebbe and his work briefly. Suffice it to say that when Chabad took its fight for public menorah lightings on Hanukkah to the United States Supreme Court, pretty much the entirety of the Jewish world was against it. You can read the list of amicus briefs against Chabad. It is basically a listing of every major Jewish organization in the world. In County of Allegheny versus American Civil Liberties Union, 1989, the Supreme Court ruled that public menorah lightings were proof that nativity scenes on Christmas were not an infringement of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The Rabbi stood against the rest of the Jewish world in declaring that the United States was blessed because its freedom of religion was the opposite of godless communism that he had fled from in Russia. The godless. I I hate not being able to edit these things. The Rebbe inspired many Jews and continues to inspire many Jews today. This was not a foregone conclusion. When his predecessor arrived in the United States in the wake of the Holocaust, pretty much everyone was agreed that only a miracle could revive Orthodox Judaism. When the Rebbe took over the leadership of Chabad, 770 was a large building for a small Hasidic sect. There are stories told of people ringing the bell only to be greeted by the Grand Rabbi himself. There are many videos online detailing how Chabad grew and 770 tried to grow with it. As more and more people were inspired by the Rebbe and started coming to him to hear him speak, as more and more people wanted to be near this holy man, speak to him, pray with him, sing with him, merely to see him, adjacent buildings were bought and the synagogue was expanded several times. The Rebbe was Judaism all the time, and one of the 13 principles of Jewish faith is the belief in the coming of the Messiah. At a time when so many Jews had given up any hope, this was yet another fire that the Rebbe stoked brightly. Along with every other principle of Jewish faith, he was adamant that the whole world should look forward to the coming of the Messiah. Many people came to believe fervently that the Rebbe himself would indeed be the Messiah. This was, of course, a matter of great controversy. The Rebbe himself often spoke in the same manner as Gamliel is quoted in the Christian book of Acts, chapter 5. The Rebbe's work was never about being against, it was about being for. The first Chabad Rebbe had taught a little light pushes off a much darkness. The seventh Chabad Rebbe believed his role was to make this teaching physical reality. Then something that many Chabad Hasidim thought was absolutely impossible happened. The Rebbe died on the third day of the Jewish month of Tammuz. That would be tonight in the Hebrew calendar. In the summer of 1994, Chabad was devastated. There are news videos of that day available on YouTube. The stages of grief roiled through the Jewish community in wave after wave. Many people could not, did not, would not believe it. The fact is that 30 years later, some still do not believe it. The fact that so many of the people in these videos are men who were not even born. By these videos, I mean the videos of what was going on in 770. Were not even born when the Rebbe was alive, should not shock you. In fact, it is part of the explanation for the crazy scene you see. 770 Eastern Parkway is a rather small place, really. You could walk past it most days without even knowing where the entrance is, or that it is always filled with Jewish men and sometimes women. Chabad Hasidim are people just like other people. There are many different ways of interpreting the Rebbe's teachings, many diametrically opposed. To most of the Rebbe's most fervent followers, it is incredibly important to spread the light of his teachings around the world. That is why Chabad is famous for building synagogues in far-flung places like Nepal, where there are few Jews. To the people who are most insecure in their belief that the Rebbe's teachings have enduring value, chanting about how he is the living Messiah in his synagogue has become the most important thing. Some will say all manner of silly things like, "Long live the king," about a dead man. This reminds many people of how Christians were unable to accept the death of Jesus. Is it surprising that we have people who are willing to do and say crazy things in the name of a Jew who inspired people to think that he was the Messiah? It certainly is not the first time in history. Just be aware that the problem continues to be that they do and say the crazy things, not that they are inspired to believe in the coming of the Messiah. So how does all of this lead to people building secret tunnels? I will refer you to another court case, or rather a whole series of court cases. Agudas Chasidei Chabad in the United States versus Congregation Luvavitch Incorporated. New York Supreme Court, 2020. The Rebbe was a wise, or this might actually be a Superior Court, not Supreme Court. New York courts are weird. The Rebbe was a wise man. He did set things up for his eventual passing and created formal procedures for running Chabad, everything short of naming a successor, which Hasidic rabbis have traditionally been unwilling to do. On the 4th of Tammuz, life had to go on. Chabad had to keep functioning. People had to deal with their grief. They had to take care of their children. They had to continue to do the tasks that the Rebbe had inspired them to do before his death. Most people accepted the leadership of the organization that the Rebbe left in charge, Agudas Chasidei Chabad, literally the union of Chabad Hasidim. Yet a small fringe of people, often mentally unstable and obsessed with the idea of the Rebbe being revealed as the Messiah, objected. A rift, both physical and legal, broke out between upstairs 770 and downstairs 770. Upstairs 770 were the offices and the people who with keys to those offices. Downstairs 770 was the synagogue open to itinerant masses. Upstairs 770 were the capable people that Rebbe had surrounded himself with to carry on his work. Downstairs 770 was filled with the hopeless people who came to be inspired by the Rebbe. The global Chabad outreach organization was run from upstairs, and it is run from upstairs. The people whose world narrowed into a single synagogue in a single building in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn sat praying downstairs. A lot of resentment festered downstairs for the people upstairs. Many stupid things have happened over the past 30 years, all of them shameful, many of them sad, some of them outrageous. Things became so topsy-turvy that when the chairman of Agudas Chasidei Chabad went downstairs to pray, he was physically attacked. I don't think anybody upstairs wants to call the police on the people downstairs. If anything, I think upstairs 770 looks at downstairs 770 with pity. Yet the situation keeps on getting worse and worse. Then came COVID and the closing of synagogues in New York City. Upstairs 770 had to deal officially with the government. For those people who don't know, officially is Yiddish sarcasm for ostensibly, superficially, and not deeply or truly. Downstairs 770 was already filled with rebellious young ideologues fired up with their own radical messianism. They didn't need any excuse to ignore upstairs 770. So when I heard about this tunnel in 770, I was saddened but not surprised. I will admit that when I saw the reaction on the internet, I started crying. Al zeh haya daved libenu, al ele chashku einenu, al har Tzion sheshamem shualim hilchu bo. This sickened our hearts, and these things darkened our eyes. That the Mount of Zion was desolate, that jackals prowled upon it. Lamentations 5, verses 17 through 18. Apparently, the tunnel started as a way of getting into the synagogue to pray even when it was supposed to be closed. Not only does that not surprise me, I expected that people would definitely be praying there during COVID. See the sage of Breslov and Uman for an example of how far Hasidim will go to pray at a place associated with their Rebbe. It does not surprise me that people may have ended up sleeping there or even living there. 770 is not a normal synagogue. It is the Rebbe's synagogue. The way the people of the Messianic fringe downstairs have been acting reminds me of precisely what I saw when I visited Crown Heights before most of them were born. The Rebbe has left a gaping wound in the spiritual fabric of the world where he used to shine. His light is no longer there to prevent such insanity. How long can we endure such darkness? One of the Rebbe's teachings was to ask how long, ad matai. Ad matai. And then I wrote a disclaimer, which actually should apply to this video. I am posting this when I'm extremely tired and frankly depressed. Well, I'm not depressed. If I had more time, I would hopefully make fewer mistakes, word things better, explain better, etc. I will revisit this with fresh eyes tomorrow. Good night. I am actually kind of falling asleep. I am going to read the comments, though. Let's see. What did our good friend Kurt have to say? Is Steinsaltz the most reliable author on modern Hasidic stuff? Unfortunately, he passed away. Is it possible for a new Luvavitch Rabbi to rise after the passing of the previous Rabbi? To my understanding, didn't have offsprings. I mean, it's possible, not probable. What is more possible and what I am more hopeful of is a situation akin to Rabbi Nathan and Rav Nachman, which is what actually happened with Breslov. To my understanding, Chabad is more well known for its outreach to less observant Jews and Noachides than it is for the number of Hasidic members. Yes, Chabad punches way above its weight in impact upon the larger world. Ben Shapiro argues that since the story of Hanukkah is about resisting assimilation into Hellenistic culture, it is more religious than people give it for. Couldn't really care less about what Ben Shapiro thinks. Okay. I am going to say good night, and is it fitting for me to end with our normal video ending? Yes, I think so. I think there are ways to kindle lights in the world. The Rebbe did it in a very different way as Michael Servetus, but ultimately the light in the world shows us towards the one God. So there we go. Good night.
I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry, Reverend. Thank you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian. And I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes
There's a
that devil's
proverb.
advocate thing too
Isn't there a
far.
proverb that says something like, "Don't answer a fool according to his folly."
But there's a proverb that says, "Answer a fool according to his folly."
There is.
Exactly right. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, but anyhow, good.
Thank
It was
you,
good
Reverend.
to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
The